So rather than making a whole new video, I'm just going to make a Fraps video and edit all of these soundtracks a little bit from Audiology. So I made 2 videos already, but if you just want to hear the sound, I'm going to put up a couple of what is radiological dispersals. One thing to notice is I don't have any markers on these to indicate which ones are actually a dispersal, but all of the higher raises, most of those are, and they're pretty distinct. It is a very short dispersal sound, so it should be almost like a flash, very quickly, and disperses a large spectrum of energy into an area or a device, which may include a lot of radiation or might be radiation, but a lot of radiation is attenuated as heat and is operating at a gain that should be thermally conductive. Lower than that, you're usually just going to get disruptions and dispersals such as this that will cause secondary radiation, secondary electron effects, which is gamma radiation. We're talking about alpha, beta, theta signals and stuff. So as I've said in my other video, these are radiological dispersals, and this is a computer monitor that's doing this. And you really need to watch my other video, but basically this is not normal, and a lot of individuals cannot hear it. Okay, this is the issue. Individuals like myself become a target because I am very acute. My senses are very acute. So things such as low frequency communication via an audio type of distribution system works better on me than it does other individuals because my hearing was so good at one point. But what I just proved here is that there are things going on that should not be happening, and unfortunately I forgot what I was going to say in this video because of my memory impairment I've gotten from the torture and the harassment. But these dispersals in this video that you can hear, these have been going through my head, okay, through my body. I've been tortured nightly for 3 years with this. These are radio frequency signals and whatever else involved. And I have developed a degree of electrical hypersensitivity because of it, because of radiation and etc., etc. It's to the point where they're using the radiation to see where gassy materials produce themselves in a home. And so I've noticed that in the lower levels of the home, in the morning hours, they will conduct radiation overnight to see if they can build up a toxic gas in the house overnight, which is, it's difficult to breathe. And like I said, I tried to raise these up to a level that was audible in the way that I hear it, to my audible hearing level. And because of the harassment, they're trying to impair my ability to hear. And as a result, I lost my ability to understand speech and a number of other things because of the radiation. I was told right away that they were going to make me hooked on phonics and that I wasn't going to be able to see or read. And all of these things have slowly progressed. As I've said in my other video, radiation and long-term potentiation, they are using a transcranial stimulation using radio frequency signals, linear energy weapons, in order to cause long potentiation damage to African Americans in order to give people a imitation form of autism, an imitation mental disability, an imitation mental impairment. And from what I can tell, mine is primarily running from the left ear to the right ear. So I've got a lot of logical problems, because that is your logical hemisphere. I've got arithmetic problems. I'm having difficulty learning, difficulty doing math, and I have hearing perception problems, which is all of your learning and hearing deficiencies are on the left-hand lobe. And I don't find it ironic that the majority of the harassment is coming through that ear. Here's another video. That is a computer monitor, for example. This was one of the recordings that I did that was about it's a 40-minute video now, but the original, I believe, was 2 to 3 hours long. And so I had to condense a lot of these sounds. They are kind of dispersed, but they are very symmetrical. There's a couple things going on. You'll have your dispersals that are very disruptive and powerful, and then there will be some very regular net metering and very regular dispersals that are very low. They may not be audible. They're a very fast click, and they're almost spaced all symmetrically across the span of the recording. The same height, the same power level, the same sound, and almost spaced exactly at the same point. About 30 to 60 seconds each, have a 30-second gap in between the next symmetrical and also consistent dispersal. And that one's not in this video because it's not audible enough. I don't always hear those, but they're always audible when I'm next to my computer, and this is what is doing damage to my motherboard, and they're using it to damage the VRM, the MOSFETs on the computer, the RAM, the random access memory channels, and between RAM and CPU, because they are doing remote surveillance, allow you to hear. If you feel something or you can hear it, it is almost always a photon, and photons almost always emit light. And so in order for them to conduct surveillance using RFI emissions, radio frequency interference, they're using conductive interference to monitor whether a device is on or not. It's on or it's not on. If the frequency is this high, this means the device is active. If it's this low, then it means the device is not active. And they are using this to develop a very pervasive surveillance system, and they're forcing it down African American minorities' throats and are implanting things in them so that they can say, this individual's in this room, on this floor, in this house at this time. I sent a radiological dispersal to this television and confirmed that this African American is watching television in this room, in this place at this time, and this device is on using this much wattage and is doing these activities. This is the pervasive surveillance system that they are developing. And as I explained in my first video, on the other side, the implants and the organic form of pervasive surveillance that ends up being nightly rape, torture, and harassment that victims of this crime are complaining about it's research. It's a CBI and BCI computer system. The same CBI and BCI computer system that tells them whether a TV is on or not by wattage, by signal, by electricity, by an estimation, by an algorithm. An algorithm is a very fast processed estimation made by a computer that could not normally be done by a human, and can monitor thousands or gigahertz worth, or petabytes if it's a petabyte computer, into a database monitoring thousands of individuals all at once. It is monitoring that many neurological functions at a rate that no human can capture or analyze, to give them real-time law enforcement, real-time surveillance, real-time estimations of what might happen, what might not happen, because they believe that they can instantaneously teleport to a location and stop a crime in the making, when they can't. So that is the purpose of the linear energy weapons in these radiological dispersals. They are intended to damage, sabotage, neutralize, EMP, disrupt, and stop electronics. They are designed, the linear energy weapons are designed to stop, interrupt, disorient, incapacitate, mutilate, cause ionizing damage, radiation, impairments in a human being. And the same, it's all it is an equivalent to what would happen to a computer if you sent a large amount of electrical thermally conductive energy to a monitor, or blow the monitor out. If you send it to a human individual, they're going to suffer from severe mental impairments. This is all that individuals who are complaining about this crime are talking about. That's it. It's being used for eugenics, and it is very lucrative and profitable right now. So I'm going to see if I can find another video. I think that this one has some dispersals, but I'm not sure. So here's another video that I recorded. This is another video, a prime example of computer damage and motherboard damage. I put together about a $4,000 computer, and because of white supremacy and discrimination, they are damaging the electronics in the home using these radiological dispersals. So not all of these sounds are a dispersal. A lot of them are a television in the room that's doing it as well, and it's simultaneously going off between one and the other. In addition to there's another television and whatever else that's electronic in the room that I'm not going to talk about now, but there's a couple of devices going off at the same time. But most of these are my computer, a brand new computer put together that is on a standalone UPS protected power system, and it's getting clean sine wave energy from it. And because of the utility box, the smart meter, all of the radiological dispersals are exacerbated, and none of these should even occur. I've been in this house for years, as I explained in my other video. I've never had this problem before, never heard anything like it until chemtrails started. And they started doing low helicopter flyovers over the house. Police started driving up the road and turning around in the driveway. I had a white supremacist drive a red truck in front of the house with a Confederate flag and sit outside the house for about 5 minutes, until apparently one of the neighbors was walking his dog and told him he needed to leave. So these are the things that are going on with white supremacies, as I said, and they're using the internet to stalk individuals, define African Americans, they defraud and discriminate against by using this system. And it's much more sadistic than I actually explained in this video, because they have the privilege of saying whatever they want to abuse their privileges and convince others to help them. It's being used to discriminate against individuals like myself who are trying to start a business and are buying electronics. And because this is the only thing that I am doing that would initiate some form of career interest of mine, they know that they can easily disrupt and sabotage my life, and they have. And they have forced me out of a lot of things of my life, and I've had to give up a lot. And I'm not going to get into it, but long story short, these are radiological dispersals. This is a longer video. Now what you're going to hear next in this last bit here is my computer powering down. And what actually happened is the computer failed, and now I constantly get this error that overclocking has failed, etc., because the computer is getting an overcurrent that it's not supposed to be getting from these radiological dispersals, and my computer reboots and is telling me that there was an overclocking failure. I had not overclocked my system at all. The only thing that I did do was I had calibrated my RAM, my random access memory, which runs at a certain frequency. But because the radiological signals, and as far as I can tell, they're going after the VRM, the CPU, the MOSFETs, the upper region of the motherboard, where basically all of the channels are coming outward and going towards devices. The GPU was replaced because they damaged the GPU. I had to replace that, so that works fine. The CPU is brand new. There shouldn't be any CPU issues. I'm going to continue on. So at the end of that video there, not all of those dispersals were the actual computer, but what I did was I took my micro recorder and I put it inside my computer case. And lo and behold, I captured everything that was going on in my motherboard that I was hearing outside of the case, and is loud enough to hear throughout the entire room because they're trying to damage the motherboard. Okay? And so, as I said, what resulted was I started getting motherboard problems, and I haven't figured it out since. A lot of my programs don't work the way they should anymore. They're slow, they crash, they freeze. I can barely get on my browser now, and I've only used the computer for a total of about 3 weeks. And it has absolutely no reason to have any issues. It was perfect when I first got it. And I was afraid to use it, so I put it away in a box because it's worth about $4,000. It's a workbench computer for work, for production, for video, for audio audition. I would prefer that I didn't have to waste my time on making videos about why the hell African Americans need to put up with white supremacy and segregation and basically slavery because I'm being mentally impaired in order to prevent me from starting my own business because they're prejudiced, and prevent me from getting jobs because they're prejudiced, to prevent me from starting my life and ending my life basically at the age of 23 because they're prejudiced. This is when the harassment started. I was 23 years old. So for the past 3 years I've been putting up with it because as I said, there's a proxy, a censorship against it. There's a number of individuals who apparently know that it's for eugenics, and that individuals who complain about this are to be ignored, and that's what the name of the game is right now. And I filed, the only thing I have left as a recourse is I filed a federal court case based on some of this evidence. And, it needs to be publicized, but no one is willing to publicize it because people are afraid of human rights in this country. They're afraid of making an honest error. They're afraid that I'm wrong. They're afraid that something that would be for the better good of humanity is too much to talk about, basically. And it's pretty obvious at this point that something wrong is happening, and there's enough individuals talking about smart meters being involved with chemtrails already. And I'm not even talking about that in my case. I'm speaking about why I need to put up with torture every night and rape, and why do I need to have my testicles and my scrotum electrified, zapped, and stimulated in the middle of the night to the point where I am pissing and shitting on myself in the middle of the night, and I have to basically do things that I never should have to do at the age of 23 and 24. So you got to ask yourself the question, why am I seeing sexual acts and being overstimulated with these things every night? Why is it every time that I lie still between the hours of 11 and 9 o'clock that I'm being tortured and not allowed to sleep? Why is it between the hours of 7 and 11 a.m. to 12 in the morning that they leave me alone? And it's very simple from a victim's understanding, because they want to make sure that you can't live. They want to make sure that you're not healthy. They want to make sure that these radiological dispersals, the radiation torture that you get every night, has a long-lasting effect, and that the potentiation is as strong as it could possibly be, and it has enough lingering effects to see if they can give you cancer, to see if they can mentally impair you, to see if the family of 3 that's giving birth to a second child, that they can use this system on their child and mentally impair their child before they hit the age of 2. The child can't speak for themselves, but instead of abortion, they're going to start using this system instead. This is what it's for. So it is not ironic that African American minorities would be targeted first for this, because this country is about white supremacy and white privilege first. And so I don't necessarily know exactly why I'm in here, aside from white supremacy and white privilege, and that they're abusing their resources on African Americans, but it's certainly financial incentive motivated.